Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Namaskar students. I, Dr. BAOUGujarat, Assistant Professor from English Department, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, welcome you all to this video lecture series of third year Bachelor of Arts in English. In this session, I am going to discuss unit number 3, the descriptive poetry, titled Smoke, written by Henry David Thoreau from paper 7, Study of Poetry. And the structure of this session is descriptive poetry, introduction to poet, critical analysis, conclusion, keywords, and at end we will discuss some questions. Objectives of this unit are: in this unit, we shall discuss descriptive poetry with special reference to poem Smoke and critically analyze the poem Smoke. On completing this unit, you should be able to define and discuss descriptive poetry and critically appreciate the poem Smoke. So let's start with the descriptive poetry. Descriptive poetry is a class of literature that belongs mainly to the 16th, 17th and 18th century Europe. From the earliest times, all the poetry which were not lyrical as far as the subject is concerned would make use of beautification, which can be termed as descriptive. But the critics of 17th century distinguished the ancients and the moderns on the basis of their representations. In descriptive poetry, the landscape, still life, architecture, nature, and other such objects that the poet focuses on or uses are not a tool or accessory. Instead, they are the central idea or interest. In other words, when description is just an accessory or tool and not the focus of the poem, that kind of poetry cannot be termed as descriptive poetry. For example, James Thomson's poem, The Seasons, is a beautiful example of descriptive poetry. Here the landscape is of main interest. Similarly, Drayton's Polyolbion is a descriptive poetry, where we can see the topographical movement through detail. In other words, descriptive poetry is a poem which uses detailed words in order to create imagery of person, animal, or inanimate object. Now let's move to the introduction to the poet. Henry David Thoreau, born on 12th July 1870 at Concord, US. He was an American essayist, poet, philosopher, naturalist, and historian. Best known for his book Walden, which is a reflection upon simple living in natural surroundings, and his essay Civil Disobedience, which was originally published as Resistance to Civil Government. Thoreau had keen interest in Western philosophy, poetry, religion, politics, and history. Henry David Thoreau was a complex man with many talents, and he worked hard so that he can shape his craft as well as his life. He did not differentiate between his art and his life. His work is very rich at the same time. It is full of complex contradictions that he explored. And these contradictions and complexities make his readers keep reshaping his image to fit their own needs. His literary style involves close and minute observation of nature, personal experiences, pointed rhetoric, symbolic meanings, and historical lore. He displays a vivid poetic sensibility, philosophical austerity, and a keen attention to practical detail typical of an American. He spent his life creatively, creating meaning for himself and for others. He believed in rethinking about life and always asked questions and look at nature for more intense and meaningful existence. Thoreau's writings influenced many public figures, political leaders, and reformers like Mahatma Gandhi, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., William O. Douglas, and Leo Tolstoy. All were strongly affected by Thoreau's work, especially by civil disobedience. Moreover, Thoreau was influenced by Indian spiritual thought. One can find many obvious references to the sacred texts of India in his seminal work, Walden. He also followed many Hindu customs. Thoreau contracted tuberculosis for the first time in 1835 and suffered from it intermittently. Afterwards, in 1860, following a late night expedition to count the rings of tree stumps during a rainstorm, he became ill with bronchitis and his health declined with brief period of remission, and he eventually became bedridden. He died on 6th May 1862 at the age of 44. Now let's discuss critical analysis. First, we will going to discuss critical appreciation of the poem Smoke. Smoke was first published in The Dial in April 1843, along with another short poem, Haze, under a general title of Orphics. The title of the poem suggests the poet's fascination for the qualities of a basic element in nature, smoke. Smoke is a transitional form that hovers between solid and gas, an intercessor between earth and sky, earth and the sun. It is obvious from the first reading that the perspective of the poem is that of the poet. The poem is written in one sentence and describes a pillar of smoke that rises from heart of the poet and ends in a command to the smoke to rise upward as the poet's incense and asks the gods to forgive his clear flame. The poem is written in free verse and does not follow any rhyme scheme. Imagery is the predominant tool that the poet uses here. The poem is divided into three parts as far the imagery of the poem is concerned. In lines 1 to 4, the image of journey of a bird is constructed. It shows the flight of the bird upwards. In the next two lines, the bird image is developed further as the smoke rises like a bird and circles above its nest. In the second part of the poem, the imagery changes from flight of a bird to a dark, shadowy, undefined form, which is a contrast to the imagery of first four lines. Lines 9 to 10 makes the final section of the poem. These lines are the command of the poet to the smoke that it should rise from the poet's heart and convert into a message to God to pardon poet's clear flame. These lines are summation of the poem. This is the summary of the poem. In this poem, Thoreau is captivated by a very basic element of nature, and that is smoke. Here we see Thoreau, the naturalist, in the lines 1 to 4, where the image of an upward flight of a bird is created. The smoke becomes an Icarian bird as it ascends. Icarus is a defiant boy of the Greek legend who, disobeying his father and flew too close to the sun, due to which his wax wings got melted and he drowned into the sea. Thoreau makes a skillful use of paradox here, as smoke though seems to be in a melted form in the heat of sun, just like that of the Icarus, does not fall down but rises up. It continues its flight towards the heaven. In these four lines, Thoreau's knowledge and keen interest in the Greek mythology is visible. Further, in the next two lines, Thoreau, the naturalist, comes to fore. An image of Icarus is converted to that of bird. Icarus is now lark, who rises above in the fashion of a bird circling its nest. The smoke is compared to a lark without song. Thoreau compares smoke to the soaring flight of a lark because its flight is very high and long sustained. Words like nest, song, lark, pinions, light-winged, and Icarian bird reinforce the symbol of bird, and it is merged with the image of journey through the words like upward flight, messenger, and circling. The words suggesting vague ideas like dream, shadowy, and vision are used in lines 5 to 8 to contrast with the concreteness of first four lines. The poet creates contrast of darkness and light with the help of words like midnight, night, darkening, blotting out, and star, day, light, sun, respectively. The contrast gets a combined expression in the word starveiling. The concluding lines of the poem are the central thought of the poem, where the smoke is asked to rise up from the poet's heart in the form of message to the gods, asking them to pardon his clear flame. The expression clear flame is highly suggestive, and it can be a reference to poet's work, the essence of his writings, his individuality, which is on the earth. With the help of these lines, the poet attains the height of the poem, the high point that he intended to reach with the help of imagery. Now let's discuss the poem Smoke as a descriptive poem. This poem, the form of this poem is descriptive poem. The type of this poem is descriptive poem. Now we all know that what is descriptive poem. Now let's discuss this type in reference to the poem Smoke. A descriptive poem, as discussed earlier, is the one which uses detailed words to create an imagery of a person, animal, or inanimate object, and this imagery is the central interest of the poem. In the present poem, the inanimate element smoke is used as the central idea. The smoke which rises from the heart of the poet travels upwards. Initially, the image of Icarian bird is created by the poet. As discussed earlier, Icarus is the defiant boy of Greek legend who disobeyed his father and went too close to the sun, which resulted into melting of his wings and consequent drowning in the sea. Here Thoreau, who was well versed with classical literature, uses the image of Icarus not only to show melting quality of smoke when it goes up, but also suggest the defiance of smoke that rises up in any condition. As the poem progresses, the image of Icarian bird shifts to the image of a lark. Lark is a bird well known for its high soaring flights. Here we have a lark without song. Lark songs are audible even if the bird is at a great height. But as the bird is used as a symbol for the smoke, it is suggested that smoke attains great height like lark. But it does not have any song to sing or any sound for that matter. The image of the bird's journey is further strengthened by the use of words like circling, messenger, and departing. It travels over the hamlets and rises above towards its destination. The initiation of smoke's journey is definite, but its travel is vague, and hence, in order to suggest this vagueness, the poet makes use of words like dream, shadowy, and vision, in order to bring the combination of light and darkness, which is so characteristically related to the greyness of smoke. The poet has used contrasting words like star, day, light, sun, midnight, night, darkening, blotting out, respectively. The grey smoke also takes feminine form which is visible with the help of expressions like gathering up thy skirts and night style wailing. The final lines suggest the command given to the smoke to rise from the poet's hearth and reach heaven to ask God's forgiveness for the poet's clear flame. Here, clear flame may suggest the artistry of the poet, which is now devoid of any impurities, but initially was an act of defiance, as suggested in the first few lines of the poem. Other tool used for reinforcing the image of smoke is the creation of verticality. The lines of the poem suggest a vertical movement. They successfully create a picture of smoke in different images, rising upwards. The use of present participles like melting, circling, departing, gathering, veiling, darkening, and bloating give the poem a sense of interconnectedness and continuity, an image of movement. These words are used in the middle lines of the poem where the journey of smoke is described. The poem ends with the idea of smoke rising upward and the poet's flame on the earth. The poem Smoke primarily deals with the object smoke and it uses different symbols and imageries to create a picture of journey of smoke towards sky. The poem does not metaphorically and stand for anything other than the smoke. It is definitely open to various interpretations on the basis of one's knowledge of Greek mythology, classical literature, nature, and other related spheres. Yet, the focus of the poem does not change. The conclusion of this, let's move towards the conclusion of this poem, this unit. In this unit, you have learned about the subgenre of descriptive poetry and critically analyzed and appreciate the poetry. Keywords. Many keywords are used here in this poem. First keyword is critical. It means using or involving careful judgment of good and bad parts of something. Second keyword is descriptive poetry. Descriptive poetry is a poem which uses detailed words in order to create imagery of person, animal, or inanimate object. Third keyword is imagery. It means that vivid and descriptive language which is used to create distinct and definitive pictures in the reader's mind. Next keyword is suggestive, being a sign of something. The next keyword is symbol. It means a sign, object, etc. that represents something. Here are some questions which will help you to check your progress. Question number 1 is comment on the use of imagery in the poem. By learning and by knowing all the details of the poem, you can now comment on the usage of the imagery in the poem. Question 2 is discuss the poem Smoke as a descriptive poem. And question number 3 is What is the theme of the poem? You have to elaborate this poem. Thank you for watching this video. We will meet with another unit in the next video. Namaskar.
स्वाध्यायः परमं तपः